It was Monday, not just any Monday, but the kind of Monday that makes you wish you stayed in bed. Except for me, Owen Owens, and my two best friends, Liam Lemur Lee and Marcus the Microwave Michaels. Mondays were adventure days.
Now, Owie might sound like a weird nickname, but trust me, Liam got it way worse. See, Liam had this thing for lemurs. Don't ask me why, he just thought they were the coolest.
Marcus? Well, he could heat up a plate of nachos faster than you could say extra cheese. Hence the microwave.
We were practically inseparable since kindergarten, and after years of surviving Mrs. Thompson's brutal math tests together, we figured we could handle anything, even a Monday.
This particular Monday was special. Why? Because Liam's parents surprised him with a family pass to the city zoo. That meant one thing: Operation Zoo Venture was a go. We'd been planning this for weeks, ever since Liam saw a documentary about a two-headed snake that could supposedly predict the future.
Dude, think it really has two heads?
Only one way to find out.
Liam, of course, was already prepared. He had his binoculars, a notebook, and yes, you guessed it, a brand new stuffed lemur he named Gary. The zoo was buzzing with little kids and tired parents. We beelined it straight for the reptile house, eager to meet our two-headed fortune-telling friend. But that's when things took a turn.
Remember I mentioned Liam and his thing for lemurs? Well, as we were passing the lemur enclosure, one particularly bold little guy decided to stage a daring escape. And guess who he decided to use as his getaway vehicle? Yep, Liam.
1 minute, Liam's admiring the lemurs. The next, he's got a furry, wide-eyed bandit clinging to his head. Gary the stuffed lemur clutched in its tiny paws.
Let's just say chaos ensued. Kids were screaming, parents were panicking, and Marcus, he was on the ground laughing so hard, I thought he was going to turn into a human pretzel.
After the great lemur escape of 2024 was resolved, thanks to a zookeeper with a net and a surprising amount of patience, we decided we'd had enough adventure for one day. Plus, all that excitement had made us hungry, really hungry.
Pizza at my place?
Liam's dad offered when he picked us up. It was less of a question and more of a statement. I mean, who can resist pizza after a day at the zoo? We piled into the car, Liam still clutching Gary, the stuffed one thankfully, and headed for his place.
Dude, your face!
Marcus managed between bites, pointing his pizza-greased finger at Liam. Liam just shook his head, a smile creeping across his face.
You know, I think that lemur had good taste. Gary's pretty awesome.
As we devoured slice after slice of pepperoni pizza, we couldn't help but laugh about the day's events. After pizza, we were ready for something a little more low-key. That's when Liam's dad, a man who knew the perfect remedy for any occasion, pulled out a dusty box of dominoes. Now, I'm not gonna lie, dominoes isn't exactly the most exciting game in the world, but there was something about the rhythmic clatter of the tiles, the strategic placing, and the occasional, highly competitive domino that made it the perfect end to our crazy day.
Domino!
Marcus, the king of trash talking, tried his best to psych us out, but Liam and I were on a roll. We played until the sun started to set our stomachs full of pizza and our hearts full of laughter. As we walked home that night, I couldn't help but think that maybe Mondays weren't so bad after all. Sure, they could be unpredictable, even a little chaotic, but with friends like Liam and Marcus, even a run-in with a fugitive lemur could turn into a hilarious memory. And who knows what kind of adventure next Monday would bring. Whatever it was, I knew one thing for sure: it wouldn't be boring.
So it's the middle of the night, and Owen's jolted awake by this really disturbing sound coming from downstairs. And he's half asleep, but his curiosity gets the better of him. He checks the bedrooms first. Got to make sure the gang's all safe, right? But what he finds is Marcus, sprawled out naked, scratching his chode. Yeah, not exactly a sight for sore eyes. Liam and Gary, though, nowhere to be seen. So Owen decides to channel his inner detective and creeps downstairs. The closer he gets, the louder the noise becomes. And what does he find? Liam riding Gary like a Dallas cowboy, screaming, "Yeehaw, yeehaw, yeehaw," at the top of his lungs. Now, Owen's not one to back down from a crazy situation. So what does he do? He dives right in. Quite literally, Owen starts munching on Gary's bum while Liam's still doing his thing. Yeah, Owen's officially taken the night to a whole new level of madness. So next time you're woken up by a strange noise at 4 a.m., just remember, it could be worse. Living room. It's 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Marcus is stumbling out of bed, squinting at the chaos. First, he spots Gary, naked, stinking like bream, and, well, something worse. Then there's Owen, twisted up like a human pretzel, looking like he's auditioning for Cirque du Soleil. And finally Liam, poor Liam, flat out on the floor, still rocking his cowboy hat like he's the star of a western gone terribly wrong. What happened last night? Was it a frat party, a rodeo, or both? We may never know, but one thing's for sure, Marcus's friends know how to redefine messy. Stay tuned to see how Marcus handles this epic morning after disaster.
Marcus, the de facto leader, bounced with nervous energy. Liam, quiet and watchful, sipped his beer slowly. Gary, the life of the party, already buzzed, regaled them with a story. Owen, prone to misfortune, just grinned. Jake Hansen and Liam Bowser, the quieter duo, observed the scene with amusement. It was Friday night and the air crackled with anticipation. The lads, a mix of personalities and histories, were ready to unleash. This night, they vowed, would be legendary. Tonight, they were invincible. The air thickened with cigarette smoke and the smell of cheap beer. Music blared, a thumping beat that vibrated through the floor.
Watch this, lads.
Gary, fueled by alcohol and bravado, attempted a breakdancing move, nearly taking out a lamp.
Careful, mate.
Liam, ever vigilant, stepped in just in time, a smirk playing on his lips. Marcus, catching Liam's eye, raised his glass in a silent toast. They were a good team, these lads. They had each other's backs. Tonight, they would conquer the city, fueled by friendship and cheap booze. The taxi ride was a blur of drunken singing and jostling elbows.
No, mate, you gotta take the next left.
Owen, predictably, got into a heated debate with the driver about the best route, a familiar scene that had them all in stitches.
Remember that time with the nuns, Owen?
Marcus choked out between laughs, reminding them of a particularly disastrous taxi ride involving Owen, a group of nuns, and a misunderstanding about the fare.
Misunderstandings, cultural differences.
The city lights blurred past, a kaleidoscope of promise and excitement. Tonight, anything could happen. Tonight, they were kings.
The club pulsed with a life of its own. Bodies moved under strobe lights, a sea of sweat and euphoria. I felt like a man possessed, dominating the dance floor with my moves, a bizarre mix of disco and interpretive dance.
The others, caught up in the energy, weren't far behind. Drinks flowed freely, fueled by adrenaline and the thrill of the night. They were a blur of motion, laughing, shouting, and dancing with a ferocity that bordered on manic. But amidst the chaos, a silent understanding bound them. This was their night. As the night wore on and last call approached, a sense of invincibility still hung in the air, thick as the cigarette smoke that clung to their clothes. The music slowed, a mournful ballad replacing the frenetic beat, signaling the night's end. One by one, the lads started to peel away, except for Gary and Liam, who were last seen ordering another round of tequila shots. Outside, the cool night air hit them like a slap. Marcus, leaning heavily on Jake, squinted at the streetlights. "Marcus, where's Gary and Liam?" he slurred, his words lost in the noise of the street. No one seemed to notice. The following morning dawned bright and cruel. Marcus, head pounding, reached for his phone, his stomach churning with a growing unease. He had a vague recollection of leaving the club, of the biting cold, and then nothing. He scrolled through his recent calls. Nothing from Gary, nothing from Liam. He tried calling, but both numbers went straight to voicemail. A knot of dread tightened in his gut.
Story. It's Saturday morning, and Marcus, Owen, Jake, and Bowser are on a mission. They're hunting down Liam and Gary, the dynamic duo who vanished into the night. Just when they're about to give up, Owen's phone rings. It's PC Abedlick with some interesting news. Turns out Liam and Owen's dad were arrested at the Red Lion, caught in the act of, let's say, some very public displays of affection. Furious, Owen storms home, grabs his last £5 and heads to the station to bail them out. But here's the kicker. That fiver was meant for a new vape. Owen's not letting them off easy. He makes Liam trot to the shop and replace it. So next time you think your night's wild, remember Owen's £5 escapade. It's a tale as old as time. Family.
So, it's a nice chilled Sunday afternoon, and Owen's in charge of cooking up some delicious hot dogs for the boys. Picture this. Gary and Liam are cuddled up in a blanket, each taking a bite from opposite ends of the hot dog. As they munch away, they eventually meet in the middle and share a cheeky kiss. Crazy, right? Meanwhile, Owen, ever the multitasker, is playfully popping his dog in and out of his bum. Yep, you heard that right. And then there's Marcus, who isn't quite into the hot dog feast at the moment. Why, you ask? Because he's deep into developing a brand new app called Flappy Turd. Now, Flappy Turd is set to be a hilarious remake of the classic Flappy Bird game. Instead of a bird, you'll be guiding a big poo through a series of toilets. Sounds like a banger, doesn't it? I can already picture the endless high scores and frustrating fails. Once the hot dogs are devoured, the kisses exchanged, and the app coding underway, it's time for the boys to jump into bed. But Owen, the legend that he is, decides to give it 5 minutes before hitting the sack. And what's his pre-sleep ritual? A few puffs on his crack pipe. Yeah, not your average bedtime routine. So there you have it, folks. A Sunday filled with hot dogs, kisses, app development, and a bit of late-night indulgence. What a way to wrap.
Think they have good cafeteria food here?
Gary and Liam sat nervously, their ankles chained together, cold metal against skin, not pleasant. Liam gulped.
He whispered, trying to mask his fear with humor.
Gary chuckled, a weak sound.
Doubt they serve your mom's lasagna, buddy.
They bumped fists, a silent pact of solidarity against the impending doom. They were in big trouble, big, huge trouble. It all started with a harmless prank. At least they thought it was harmless. Now, facing a courtroom full of stern faces, they weren't so sure anymore. The weight of their actions pressed down on them, heavier than the shackles binding their feet. Gary glanced around the courtroom. It was like a scene from a bad TV show, except this was real life, and there was no laugh track, and he was pretty sure those weren't actors playing lawyers. They looked awfully serious.
Hey, at least you guys will be trendsetters. Orange is the new black, you know?
Suddenly a voice cut through the tension. It was their friend Marcus, waving from the back row. He winked, holding up a magazine with a model sporting an orange jumpsuit.
Though maybe not that orange.
He added, nodding towards their bright attire. Liam forced a smile. Leave it to Marcus to find humor in the direst of situations. Gary, however, wasn't buying it.
Easy for you to joke, Marcus. You're not the one facing jail time.
Marcus just shrugged and flashed a peace sign. Some friend he was. Owen, another friend, sat beside Marcus, his brow furrowed with worry. He wasn't the joking type. He was probably already planning their escape route, Gary thought, not that it would matter. They were as good as gone.
Don't worry, guys. My dad knows a guy, a lawyer, a good one. We'll figure something out.
Owen leaned forward, his voice low, his eyes darting around the courtroom. Gary appreciated the sentiment, but Owen's reassurance did little to calm his nerves. Their fate wasn't in the hands of some lawyer, good or not. It was in the hands of the man in the black robe, staring down at them from the bench. And as Gary's gaze met the steely eyes of the judge, his blood ran cold. He knew those eyes. He knew that face. It couldn't be. The judge cleared his throat, his voice booming through the silent courtroom.
Gary Thompson, Liam Johnson, you stand accused of...
His voice droned on, listing their alleged crimes. Gary barely registered the words. His mind was stuck on the judge's face. It was Mr. Henderson, their old gym teacher, the one with the whistle and the booming voice and the uncanny ability to throw a basketball across the entire gym and hit you in the head if you weren't paying attention.
Think he'll go easy on us? Remember that time I accidentally hit his car with a dodgeball?
Liam, oblivious to Gary's internal panic, leaned closer, his voice a mix of hope and horror. Gary just shook his head, fear constricting his throat. This wasn't gym class, this was serious. Mr. Henderson, or rather, Judge Henderson, peered down at them over his spectacles. His gaze lingered on Liam for a moment, a flicker of something akin to amusement dancing in his eyes. Then, his expression hardened, the gavel slamming down on the sound block with a resounding crack.
Silence in the court!
The trial dragged on. Witnesses were called, evidence was presented, and Gary and Liam's prank, which had seemed so funny at the time, was dissected and analyzed until it resembled something sinister. Throughout it all, Judge Henderson remained an enigma, his face an impassive mask, until, that is, it was Liam's turn to speak. Liam, never one for public speaking, stammered and stuttered, his face turning a charming shade of crimson. He mumbled apologies, his voice barely a whisper. Then he did something unexpected. He looked Judge Henderson straight in the eye and said,
I know we messed up, sir, but we didn't mean any harm. We just wanted to make people laugh.
A beat of silence. Then Judge Henderson did something even more unexpected. He smiled. It wasn't a big smile, but it was enough to send a ripple of surprise through the courtroom.
Mr. Johnson, I understand the need for laughter. Believe me, after 20 years in this job, a good laugh is hard to come by.
He paused, his gaze sweeping over the courtroom.
However, the law is the law, and ignorance is no excuse.
He brought the gavel down.
Gary Thompson, Liam Johnson, for your blatant disregard for the rules and regulations of this fine city, I hereby sentence you to...
Suddenly the back doors of the courtroom burst open, and a figure strode in, casting a long shadow across the floor. It was Miss Rodriguez, the school lunch lady, her hairnet askew, a rolling pin clutched in her hand like a weapon.
Not so fast, Henderson. Those are good boys. They always ate their vegetables.
Before anyone could react, she had marched up to the front of the courtroom, grabbed Gary and Liam by their collars, and whisked them out of the courtroom, leaving a bewildered judge, a stunned jury, and a whole lot of dropped jaws in her wake. As they sprinted down the courthouse steps, the rolling pin bouncing against Miss Rodriguez's ample hip, Gary and Liam couldn't help but laugh. It wasn't the escape route they had imagined, but it was definitely one for the books. They were free, thanks to the most unlikely of heroes, and as they ran, the city streets stretching out before them, they knew one thing for sure. They had each other's backs, no matter what, and that was a bond stronger than any.
Owen had a plan. A really, really good plan. He was going to convince Marcus to be his partner in the Flappy Turds app. It was going to be huge. Bigger than Angry Birds, bigger than anything. But there was one problem. Marcus. He was about as approachable as a grumpy badger. Owen knew he had to come up with something big, something that would make Marcus say yes. Owen decided to appeal to Marcus's love of money. He spent all night creating a presentation with graphs and charts showing the potential profits of Flappy Turds. This was going to be his masterpiece. The next morning, Owen set off to find Marcus. He found him at the park, predictably, surrounded by a group of girls. Owen took a deep breath and launched into his well-rehearsed pitch.
"Get lost, Owen," he muttered, turning back to the girls.
Dejected, Owen trudged home. Maybe he could convince his neighbor Joanne to download the app. She wasn't exactly the target audience, but at this point, Owen was desperate. Joanne wasn't home. Instead, Owen found her walking her poodle, Princess, who seemed to have gotten herself in a bit of a predicament. Let's just say it involved a fire hydrant and leave it at that. Owen, never one to miss an opportunity, whipped out his phone. "This is perfect for my app," he exclaimed, snapping pictures of Princess in all her glory. Just then, Marcus walked by. He stopped dead in his tracks, staring at Owen and his phone.
"What is that?" he asked, his eyes wide.
"That, my friend, is marketing genius," Owen announced, showing Marcus the pictures of Princess.
Think of the possibilities.
To Owen's surprise, Marcus seemed intrigued. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. Later that night, Owen was riding high on his success. He decided to celebrate by going to the local bowling alley, hoping to impress some older women with his newfound confidence. Let's just say things didn't exactly go as planned. He ended up tripping on his shoelaces, sending his bowling ball flying into the next lane. Strike! Too bad it wasn't his lane. Just when Owen thought the night couldn't get any worse, he spotted Marcus at the snack bar. And he was smiling? Actually, he was laughing hysterically. It turned out that the bowling ball incident was even funnier from afar. Marcus was practically in tears as he recounted the story to his friends.
"You should have seen it. The ball just flew into the next lane. Classic."
As Owen watched Marcus laugh, he realized something. Maybe making millions wasn't the most important thing. Maybe, just maybe, having a good laugh was worth more. Owen walked over to Marcus, a sheepish grin on his face.
"So about that partnership."
Marcus wiped a tear from his eye.
"We'll talk tomorrow, Owen," he said, still chuckling. "Right now, you need to tell me all about that poodle."
Owen couldn't help but smile. It looked like Flappy Turds and his friendship with Marcus had a fighting chance after all.